So let's bring in Te Premier, the Prime Minister. Now, morning, Prime Minister. Thanks so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it. Morena. Before we get into things, can I just first thank you for acknowledging Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori at the beginning of yesterday's COVID briefing. Tēnā koe. Let's talk COVID. Mystery cases, gosh, they're a bit of a sticking point for us, aren't they? So those are the ones that are not genomically linked to a current case or to a cluster. So do we need to have all of those linked before Tāmaki Makaurau can move out of level 4?
No, not necessarily. And Jenny May, one of the decisions that Cabinet made yesterday is that we've made an in-principle decision that at midnight next Tuesday that we'll move to level 3. And that's because, at this stage, our belief is that we will be in the position to do that. But you're right. In the meantime, some of the things that we are honing in on are our mystery cases, that actually all of them are genomically linked. What we're unable to find is necessarily that person-to-person or that location where we think that transfer happened. So even though we have 17 in the last fortnight, which given the size of our outbreak isn't too bad, there's actually only a handful that we're really honing in on. And there are things that people can do to help us. If we're unable to link them, what we do instead is we test around. We test around those suburbs to really give ourselves some satisfaction that even though we have some mysteries, we actually feel like the testing is showing us that it hasn't created any more problems. So we're doing a call out to Mount Eden, Massey, Mangere, Favona, Papatoetoe, Otara, and Manurewa, and saying, look, if you've got even the mildest of symptoms, please do pop in and get a test. So far, those suburbs have been amazing. They've really helped us with our testing rates. We want to keep that going for the next 7 days.
As you said, Cabinet has agreed in principle for Auckland to move out of level 4 at 11:59 on Tuesday. So in order for that to actually happen, what else? You've talked about those 7 suburbs in Tāmaki Makaurau that you want to get tested, but what else will help us get out of this holding pattern? What are the things that we can actually do?
I'd say there's 4 things. Firstly, the testing in those suburbs. If there are additional suburbs that we believe we need to do wider surveillance testing, we will notify you of that over the course of the week. We at the same time are doing surveillance testing of essential workers and healthcare workers. So far, that hasn't pulled out any additional cases. The next thing that we will be doing is really tight cluster management, just to make sure that anyone that our contacts aren't unnecessarily causing other cases. But that's something that we do day in, day out, and our public health team are working very hard on. The third thing, we need people to continue to stay at home. We are asking people to limit risk. If you can just have one person go out and do that shopping, and if that person is vaccinated, even better. When we do have locations of interest for our cases at the moment, predominantly they're things like supermarket shopping, dairies, laundromats, things people are allowed to do, but we want to reduce the risk that you come in contact with any of those individuals before we find them. The final thing is vaccinate. This week we have an amazing opportunity. I know it is so hard for Auckland right now, but one of the things you can do is go out and get vaccinated. We had a record day on the 3rd of September. We want to beat that this week. There are capacity for 220,000 people to be vaccinated. We have spaces available today. So if you're already booked, but it's not till October, go back and have another look. There'll be a spot available for you. Please bring it forward. Get vaccinated this week.
Prime Minister, I'd like to talk about the government's strategy when we're talking about COVID-19. And just bear with me as I give this some context. On the programme yesterday, we had two guests questioning the elimination approach that your government is currently taking. Amish Dalja from Johns Hopkins University, who's an infectious diseases expert, said, and I quote, "At a time where you have rapid testing available, have vaccines available, this New Zealand approach is wrong." Immunologist Professor Graham Legros from Vaccine Alliance Aotearoa's comments to me yesterday were that we can't be in a state of paralysis forever. Is the elimination approach, as you see it, our long-term approach, or is there another plan?
I think the elimination approach is the long-term approach. I think the short-term approach is the short-term approach. And the short-term approach is the short-term approach. And the long-term approach is the long-term 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 approach. And the long-term approach is Look, a good question. And actually what those two specialists were talking about is a vaccinated world.
Yep.
And what we've been saying is, while we are vaccinating, elimination is our best strategy because we don't have a widely vaccinated population yet. And so we must vaccinate as a protection for ourselves and to replace what we've in the past used as lockdowns to try and protect ourselves. Let's remember, we used lockdowns because we didn't have vaccines. Now we have those vaccines. We need to use that tool. That's a way we can move away from some of the ones that have been harshest in our toolbox. The only other thing I would say is that, elimination has worked well for us, and I will continue to defend the strategy we've had, because compared to other countries, New Zealand has had 521 days. Well, we have not had stay-at-home orders. We've had 521 days compared to the United States, compared to the UK, even compared to Australia. We've had far fewer days where we've had to stay at home than all of those countries. So it's worked well, but we constantly review what we do in the future, and vaccines will also help us change what we do in the future.
What is your reaction to national blame and the ongoing restrictions on the slow rollout? Is there a point here in terms of our vaccine rollout? It has been criticised for being too slow. I mean, yes, it is ramping up now, but in the beginning, being criticised for being too slow. Had our vaccination rates been higher prior to the Delta outbreak, would there be less restrictions now?
Well, two things I'd say to that. We've been going as fast as the supply we've had. So, of course, we got in nice and early with advanced purchase agreements for drug companies. But of course, we work with the delivery and the supply that we have. We've worked very hard over the course of this month to bring in even more. And now there's nothing holding us back. So it's now up to us. But in terms of vaccines and restrictions, there's actually, if you look around the world, even those highly vaccinated populations are still using restrictions. It was a big deal in Europe when, I believe it was yesterday, Denmark said, okay, we're going to finally remove our restrictions, but they still have restrictions at their border. So every country right now, even those with highly vaccinated populations, are still using tools. What we want to get away with is the harshest of those tools, like lockdowns.
Can I talk about businesses now? And we had a couple of business owners who are in Tamaki Makaurau who are really struggling at the moment. Now, Lindsay is a hairdresser. And she was talking about the wage subsidy and the time it has taken for her to receive those payments. I just want to play you something, Prime Minister, if I can.
Yeah,
this is what she said to us this morning.
Because the first subsidy went through, obviously it was a Friday that it came through on the Monday. The Monday came and went, and I had a couple of team members message me saying, oh, we're going to be paid. So for me, daunting feeling, thinking, and I'd let them know. I said, as soon as the money's in the bank account, I'll let you know. A week, 10 days went on and still nothing. And obviously I'm starting to feel really pressured, because like I said, I feel like I'm responsible for so many of my girls, and I felt like I had failed them.
And this is, Lindsay's story is just one of what we're hearing. So are you aware of those payments being slow?
Well, they've tended to actually be very, very fast. The feedback we've had is actually of all of the payments, those coming through for the wage subsidy is often within days. I've even had reports of hours. So I am happy to go away and just see what might be happening in that particular set of circumstances. But if I may, a reminder of the financial support. There is another wage subsidy round that will be available as a result of the restrictions that continue in Tamaki Makaurau. And what I think is really important to remind people is that if you live in and run a business in another part of the country, even if you're in alert level 2, if part of your business is impacted because of the fact that Auckland is still in restrictions, so for instance, you're a tourism business that has a lot of visitors that usually come through from Auckland, then you may still also be eligible to continue to access the wage subsidy. So that's just something to keep in mind. The other is the resurgence support payment. We've put in another round of that. And so that has continued to roll and is available on a 3-weekly basis.
While we're talking about grants, etc., we've also had anecdotal reports of beneficiaries and students who found the process of trying to apply for the hardship grants as intrusive and humiliating. Are you aware of this, and does it concern you?
We actually have tried to improve or ease up the access to things like hardship grants. Through MSD, for instance, some of those additional support payments you're able to get online to make it as quick and easy as possible. So again, I'll go back and look if you've covered them in your show. I'll have the team go back through anything that's been talked about over the course of your show to see what it is we need to follow up on.
Ngā mihi kia koe. Thank you so much, Prime Minister, as always, for your time this morning. Thank you.
Ngā mihi nui.
Kia ora.